Yesterday afternoon, the New York Times posted a report regarding the Deshaun Watson situation. Several interesting angles there. The headline that we first gleaned from it, evidence developed by Jenny Vrentas of the Times based upon reviewing evidence from the cases that are moving forward and other sources, show at least 66 women providing him with massage services privately over the past 17 months. Now, remember, the allegation was made in lawsuit number 24 that he's had more than 100 random strangers on Instagram providing massages. I've asked Rusty Hardin's office to comment specifically on whether or not they agree with that statement. They have not yet given me a definitive response. But according to Vrentas, it's 66. We thought before this week it was 40. And again, it's at least 66. She's identified 66 over a 17-month period. And remember early on, Chris, Rusty Hardin's explanation was that the pandemic disrupted Deshaun Watson's normal massage habits and availability. Well, according to Vrentas, he started this before the pandemic.
Right.
This wasn't something that the light bulb went off, hey, I need my massages. The pandemic is restricting my usual access, so I'm going to go get all these strangers on Instagram to give me massage after massage after massage. The COVID excuse is dead.
Yeah, it didn't hit that hard in Texas anyways, so to where I think it would really affected that either way. But go ahead, keep going.
Well, and I mean, but the bottom line is
it's not a good excuse.
That was an early line of defense,
right.
and I'm a firm believer in the bad beef stew analogy, that when you find a piece of rancid meat in a pot of beef stew, you don't set it aside and keep eating the stew. You dump out the whole pot. The question is, how rancid a piece of meat is the idea that he started doing all this because of COVID? I mean, maybe that's just the first lie that was told, the first of many lies that have been told about what he was up to, as he tries desperately to conceal this potentially, if these allegations are true, kind of bizarre fetish lifestyle that he had. But the Vrentas article goes in depth and adds to what has been a bad 8 days, a very bad 8 days for Deshaun Watson in the court of public opinion. The court of public opinion matters because, again, the entire personal conduct policy is a tool aimed at allowing the NFL to punish guys in a way that will placate public opinion. They care about what guys do away from work, even when they have months of an offseason where they're not under the jurisdiction of the team at all, because fans expect the league to care. Because we, as the NFL, not we, but the NFL expects fans to give them money and time and attention, so that's why they care. But that's why PR matters. And that's, one of the big fights that you'll see on social media. Well, he still wasn't indicted, and he still hasn't been found guilty of anything or responsible for anything. But that doesn't matter. When the court of public opinion seems to be swaying so heavily against the guy as more and more comes out, and his team isn't doing enough to push back in a persuasive and effective way, the battle's lost at that point as it relates to what the NFL is going to do, because I feel like what's happened the last week makes it far more likely than it was previously that he is going to get a significant suspension at some point, Chris.
Definitely. I mean, you said it right. I mean, yeah, public opinion's a huge part of this process, definitely, in how the NFL looks at it. This last week or 10 days has been the worst part. I mean, to me, about the worst 10 days for Deshaun Watson and Rusty Hardin that they've had throughout this whole process, other than when the news first broke of this whole situation. I mean, to me, this was, these are body blows they've taken almost every day here for the last week straight. And, yeah, I mean, again, it's only adding to the conversation of, he seems gross. He has issues around the country. It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter. I have a conversation or two every day about it, no matter where I go. The gym yesterday. I mean, it gets people just, oh, man, Watson, whoa. I mean, what the hell? I mean, so, yes, it's odd. And, again, I still, yes, with this, there's an issue there. Rusty Hardin's not doing the best job of framing things to help Deshaun Watson out. And this is a big-time blow for the New York Times. I still get to the question, too. I just have a hard time thinking the Houston Texans didn't know some about this as well.
Well,
that's
one of the angles. That's one of the angles, and I had it on my list to get to later. Let's get to it now. Part of what Jenny Vrentas discovered, and again, there's no smoking gun that shows that the Texans knew, but the standard that applies in many settings is knew or should have known. Knew or should have known. That's the negligence standard. What did you know? What should you have known? What would a reasonable person have known? What would a reasonable person have done? And the idea that they had facilities for him at the Houstonian that he was using, the idea that they gave him NDA language, that he was just having all these people sign to keep it all quiet and keep it all hush-hush, and he just acted like it was normal. There is a question about what the Texans knew, when they knew it, whether they knew or whether they should have known. Should they have known what he was doing? And I think that, and I'm not defending them, but I think back to Mike Vick. This guy had an active dogfighting operation in Surrey County, Virginia for years. Out in the open. If anybody had bothered to, go poke around a little bit. Falcons never knew. So much for all these teams having these great security directors, former law enforcement who are plugged in and know everything about everyone. And so I think sometimes you have blind spots.
Yeah.
And I think teams have blind spots for franchise quarterbacks.
Definitely.
And
players.
the Texans had no reason to be digging around in Deshaun Watson's life or thinking anything ill of anything he was doing. He had the perfect cover. If these allegations are true, he had the perfect cover. Everybody thought he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Perfect cover.
Right.
Nobody's looking at him like, well, this guy's kind of creepy. Hey, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. He's the last person you would have thought was doing this stuff, if it's true. So it's hard for me to fault the Texans because it's all so freaking weird.
It is.
If it's true.
Yeah, I'm not trying to fault them.
How do you, like, at what point, I'm not defending them, but at what point, put yourselves, folks, in the shoes of anyone in Texans management. At what point does the light bulb go off? Is it possible this guy is just lining up massage after massage on social media because he's got some weird fetish that he likes to go get a massage and then try to make it into a sexual encounter? And there may be some folks who are objecting to this, and there's going to be a landslide of litigation, and there's going to be criminal complaints. At what point does that light bulb begin to flicker? I don't think that
it's not easy.
Most reasonable organizations aren't constantly looking for things that, like outlandish, over-the-top things that maybe their employees are involved in. I'm not defending them.
You might smoke weed, but yes,
right. You could say that, you could say there's enough here that maybe somebody should have begun to connect the dots and be a little bit concerned. But it's one thing after the fact to say, hey, you know what?
I know.
It's another thing to have the foresight, because look, if you start poking around on something like that and you're wrong, and you alienate Deshaun Watson, they alienated him anyway. I guess that's the great irony. They alienated the guy anyway. But you're going to piss off a valued employee if you start asking a bunch of questions and they're like, what the hell are you talking about? No. What? You think I do that? No. Are you really? How dare you? How dare you? So it's not an easy thing to do. You could argue maybe they should have known. With the exercise of reasonable diligence, maybe they would have known. But it's hard. It's hard to put yourself in that spot and apply foresight. It's easier to apply hindsight. Obviously, it always is. So I'm not defending them. I'm just saying that's a
it's a tough
you better
one.
be damn before you start asking those questions. You better be damn sure that you're onto something.
Yeah, well, and like you said, you don't really want to find something about the best player on your team. I don't know how hard you're going to look, and that goes for all teams with their star players. So I think your point's very real there. Now, like, what did you take from Deshaun Watson's Instagram response yesterday.
Somebody just needs to tell him to shut up.
Yeah.
Don't do this. Don't do it. Nothing. You're not going to make it better. At this point, you're not going to make it better. He's so intent on fighting these because he wants to clear his name. Your name's never getting cleared at this point. It's never going away. There are too many people. It's lasted too long. The Ben Roethlisberger stuff, as serious as it was, it ended quickly. He started playing again. He served his suspension. And 1 year led to 2 years, led to 3 years, and it became forgotten. This is never going to be forgotten because it's already 15 months old and it has no end in sight. So, and this is just a little microcosm of the fact that he's either ignoring good advice that he's getting or he's surrounded by too many people telling him what they think he wants to hear. He needs tough love here. He needed it 15 months ago. He needed somebody to sit him down and say, Deshaun, what are you doing? Listen. You got to stop it, and you got to make amends. You got to do it. This is not the time to get, puff your chest out. I didn't do anything. This is the time to make amends because you got people coming out of the woodwork saying you did something, and I don't care if you did it or not. You got to fix it. That's the kind of message he needed. And before he posted that message yesterday with the lyrics that suggest defiance. Defiance is not a good look for him right now. It hasn't been a good look from the get-go.
Well, no,
it's definitely not a good look now.
Yeah, agree. Especially, I think, when, it just hasn't necessarily made himself open or hasn't talked about these, this stuff. Hasn't had a lot of tough questions thrown his way about the subject to where, we'd like to hear more. As far as out of your mouth and evaluate it from there, not, some cool Instagram message. You're right. And I think that gets a little bit, lost on deaf ears a little bit at this point to a degree. And Mike, I don't know. Yeah, the Deshaun Watson, his approach to this, it certainly is, I question it. I do. I question, I guess, to a degree, the same thing that makes him great. The stubborn, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it, I feel like might be the same thing that's holding him back in this situation right now. That the fact that he wants to prove that he was innocent and show everybody, and like you're saying, that's over. Like there's going to be a huge group of people that it doesn't matter anymore. They're not going to believe you. They think you're guilty. There's nothing you're going to change. So why don't you, to your point, just get on and get it out of here? To where maybe you save some of the other people that are still on the fence about you a little bit there, and at least it stops the conversation, and you don't have to continue to deal with this quite the way you are now. I mean, I'm with you there, and it just seems like we're a little late for that now. He's stuck in this fight, it seems like, knee-deep now, and it's not going to be able to just settle it and make it go away.
One of the other significant wrinkles from the New York Times story relates to communications that happened between Rusty Hardin and Jonna Stallings. Jonna Stallings, the assistant district attorney in Harris County, who handles the sex crimes unit and was preparing to present cases to the grand jury. Through access to public records, Jenny Rentis pieced together the extent to which Hardin was communicating with Stallings in the months preceding the grand jury effort to determine whether or not to indict Deshaun Watson. And look, every lawyer's got a strategy. If you don't, you need to find another line of work. In every case you handle, there is a strategy. And it is multi-layered, multifaceted, start to finish. This is my strategy. Here's my plan for implementing it. And I believe Rusty Hardin's strategy was to do everything he could to ensure that Deshaun Watson was not indicted on any charges. That if they could avoid an indictment, they could maybe bootstrap that into a finding of no punishment at all. I think that's where his logic was flawed, but he was determined to get no indictment. And when you consider the extent to which there were communications, they met, the prosecutor and Hardin did, at his office. They spoke over the phone 12 times, and they exchanged more than 24 text messages in the 2 months leading up to this process. And ultimately, instead of having his client go testify at the grand jury, Rusty Hardin presented a package of information that made their case for the purposes of showing that to the grand jury. You know, you hear all the time, a prosecutor can indict a ham sandwich if he or she wants to. Yeah, because you can say whatever you want. It's a one-sided presentation if you want it to be. If you want to indict somebody, you're getting an indictment because you have no obligation to offer up their defense. It's just you. It's an ex parte, one-way communication with the body making the decision, and the other side doesn't even have a voice. When you start giving the other side of the voice, when you start giving the other side a voice, you're not indicting a ham sandwich. You have discretion. You can go very aggressively and indict anyone on anything, or you can go the other way, where maybe you get the grand jury to tread lightly. Because maybe, and Chris, here's my point. This is what I think happened. The prosecutor knew she was buying herself a dream team, Marcia Clark, Christopher Darden situation, where Deshaun Watson is going to pay what it takes to have a team of lawyers constant in every one of these cases. And how hard is it to find reasonable doubt when it's two people in a room? One says something happened, the other says nothing happened. How hard is it to conjure reasonable doubt when you have no objective evidence, no third-party witness to confirm it, right? She didn't want to mess with that. She did not want to mess with that. I got to prove these cases beyond a reasonable doubt. No, thank you. I'd rather just not have any indictments whatsoever. Grand jury find that there's no probable cause, there's no crime committed, and my life is a hell of a lot less complicated because I don't have to deal with Rusty Hardin. Look how aggressive he is working me before the grand jury. What's it going to be like as we're getting ready to go for trial? I'm not going to be able to get anything else done. I have to use my resources for other things, for actual crimes that I think I can prove, not potential crimes that may evaporate in a haze of reasonable doubt because I can't prove it to the requisite standard because I don't have the evidence that I need to do it. That's what I think happened here. She got worked by Rusty Hardin to not want to indict Deshaun Watson because she didn't want to take on the fight of trying to convict Deshaun Watson, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, Mike. It does. I don't know. I mean, again, it's not the greatest look. I guess that's what I would say here, too. It almost seems, unethical to the point that you can do this. I know it's not illegal. It does seem a little crazy, certainly. But, you explained it right. It makes sense. And, yeah, the reasonable doubt thing certainly, makes things a little tough for sure. So, I don't know. Again, either way, it's like another blow, though, that just doesn't look good for Rusty Hardin or Deshaun Watson. It looks like it's a little bit of like an inside deal might have gone down there, even though that's not maybe what happened. That's just the way a lot of people are going to look at this and think that's what went on.
This isn't nefarious, I don't think. I think this is as simple as Rusty Hardin was making sure that Jonna Stallings and the rest of that department knew what they were getting themselves into.
Yeah.
And they don't want to deal with it. Why? Look, why would I, as a prosecutor, want to take on a high-profile case that I know I'm going to lose? They're going to televise this thing. Oh, and I'm going to lose it. No, thank you. I'd rather not take the case at all. Look, people think the judge is the most powerful person in any jurisdiction. It's the prosecutor. The prosecutor decides who gets charged and who doesn't get charged. Prosecutorial discretion is vast. It is broad. It is power. They can turn someone's life upside down for months if they want to, or they can give them a pass. And sometimes you're giving them a pass because you're giving yourself a pass, because you don't want to bust your ass for the next year trying to prosecute a guy who's got the resources to put together a defense that is going to craft reasonable doubt in every one of these cases. That's what I believe happened. It's not somebody got paid off. It's somebody who gets paid by the year, not the case, not the hour, but gets a yearly salary saying, I got better things to do than waste my time and the resources of this department on cases that are going to result most likely in acquittals. One last point real quickly, because after the New York Times report yesterday, I feel more strongly than ever that paid leave needs to be back on the radar screen. I asked the league point blank, I asked Brian McCarthy, paraphrasing. The commissioner said back in March, no paid leave. If I'm going to do anything, I'll just suspend him. Does that still apply? Yes or no? Simple question. Fair question. Do his words from March still apply today? Response, no comment. My belief, paid leave's back on the table. How can it not be, Chris? How can it not be back on the table?
Yeah, I hear you. How could it not be? I would think, yes, that's on the table. All things are on the table right now. But I think
But they took it off the table. That's what's significant.
I know. Well,
rarely do you see them remove it and then put it back.
Yeah. Well, the NFL is being backed into a corner here for sure by everything we've discussed and where the public perception is right now around Deshaun Watson, and it ain't good. So they gotta try to figure out all options to make things work for the league. So that's what we'll see where it goes. But I would think it's back on the table.
3 reasons real quickly why paid leave would make sense. Beyond the fact that I think it's justified based upon this avalanche of allegations and just the way everything's gone the last week. Number 1, you short-circuit the whole disciplinary officer process with paid leave. You don't have to worry about some third party getting involved to determine whether or not paid leave is justified. That's only if you're going to suspend him, discipline him, etc. The league regards paid leave as not discipline. Number 2, you unlock all of football season for him to start trying some of these cases and get them behind him. Right now, August 1 to March 1 is off the table. Good luck getting these 24 cases done when every August 1 to March 1 is none of these trials are going to happen. You put him on paid leave, he can focus on trying these cases. Number 3, as I said yesterday, they put him on paid leave, these cases are going to settle. I know it's going to be expensive, but if they put him on paid leave, these cases are going to settle. Once he recognizes what it means and what the consequence is, and then he's going to sit out another season, maybe longer, it's going to be time to settle these cases, Chris.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, we'll see where it goes. I mean, hopefully this all comes to a head. I'm sick of kind of talking about this subject. I got nothing more to say today.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.